Hi guys, I'm Shmee, hello and welcome back to the channel where today is my first taster of some EV range anxiety, but I'm going to give this a go. My first reasonably long trip in the new Porsche Taycan Turbo S, heading from London to Birmingham and back, about 250 miles or so we're going to be driving today with a car that at the moment has about 80% of charge. That's good for about 150 miles because remember, I don't currently have the ability to charge it at all here in the garage, so I had to top it up yesterday. But basically, we're actually taking the GT R Roadster to be dropped off, and we figured we would take this, give it a go, bring you along for the experience of what it's actually like here with the infrastructure. So this is good to get to Birmingham, but not very far back. So we're going to do a top up on the way. I've got the planned locations of where we're going to be stopping to see how the charging experience actually goes and to share a bit more of it with you. So first big outing in the Taycan, let's do it. Up to this point, I have driven around 400 miles or so in the Taycan Turbo S, from collecting it to taking it to Dub Customs, where we transformed it to the midnight green, then to Whoops We'll Fix It for the orange gold wheels to contrast, and I think it looks magnificent. And obviously we also did a few drag races, so the car has been used a fair amount already. I've been trying to get to grips with it. I've been to maybe 7 or 8 different chargers in total, but as I said, unfortunately at the moment, despite there being lights and power inside here, we don't yet have the approval to install some chargers. That will come hopefully in the future. So I've been relying on chargers on the go, stopping, going to my local ones, trying to learn about the different systems and obviously work out which is going to be the fastest. So I've got a bit of an idea of where we're going to be going today, but fundamentally, like I said, we are taking the GT R Roadster. This car is actually going to Pandora Car Alarms, where it's going to have a system installed which I will show you much more about in the near future. So we're going to take that out as well, about 300 miles or so on the Roadster's clock. We'll drive up with the 2 cars up towards Birmingham, just south of Birmingham, where we'll then drop off the Roadster and come back with the Taycan. Walking up to it, I do love how the handles pop out automatically as you approach the car, but let me quickly show you what we have then in here by way of mileage at the moment. A press of the button to start it, everything wakes up, which always looks fantastic, and at the moment we have 79% of power, 79%, good for 152 miles. Now it's 111 to our first stop, then it would have been about 40 back to the fast charger I wanted to use. That obviously is going to have us going right down to the line, and I'm not sure if this number will get stronger or weaker as we go, something I'm still learning about the car. So instead of doing that, we will do a small top up on the way. Hopefully that's going to see us through. Basically, I guess, a bit of an update on owning the car so far, 410 miles on the dashboard, and a bit of a challenge with some range anxiety as to whether the chargers will work and whether we can get exactly where we need to go. I am sure that some of you had noticed, I hadn't spotted it at the time, but the number plate at the front was slightly popping off. It wasn't stuck down properly, so I've just had to sort all of that out, get some new sticky tape on the back of it, but we are going to be taking this out as well. So currently on the clock here, both cars are keyless. I'm just carrying the keys in my pocket at the moment. We have 254 miles, very early stages. At least in here though, we have the sound of a twin-turbo V8. The Taycan and its silence is the most bizarre thing. So I will take this car up out of the garage, then I'll bring the other car up, and then we'll be heading for the drive. In the time I've been sitting here, I have lost another percent. We are now down to 78%, but into drive, nice and easily does it. I tell you what, I'm getting more and more used to bringing this car down into the garage, although if another car is coming the other way, it is not so easy. We have our lift system just here, and the rear wheel steering, despite how long this thing actually is, 4 meters 95 or so, it's actually quite a lot more easy than you would think to actually get it up out of the ramps in here, unlike some of the cars. Well, I tell you what, the much shorter GT R Roadster makes things even easier. So in a second then, we'll be heading straight up and out and on the road. Unfortunately, getting out of London this morning is not the easiest. It's a massive gridlock traffic jam. Feels like everybody wants to be in their cars this morning, which is far from ideal. We've actually already used 2% of battery, going not very far, and as you've probably noticed, I'm behind the GT R Roadster at the moment, which is always quite cool for me to get to see the other Shmeemobiles on the road. Just, yeah, this isn't great. And obviously, to do this, you're moving the weight of a very heavy car, and don't get me wrong, it's immensely peaceful being in something so quiet. It's a very easy car to drive, despite being 5 meters long, but it's probably not the most efficient in the world, especially when you already have a little bit of anxiety about how far you need to go. And in fact, we've got 62 miles, an hour and 10 minutes to our first refill, recharge, stop point, and then a little bit further, obviously up towards Birmingham, 111 miles in total for this journey. So, let's see what's gonna happen. Fast forward an hour or so, and we have arrived at our first charging point. Now, there's a reason I've come here, Cherwell Valley Services on the M40, which is to do with my previous experience, actually, using this charger on a run I did the other day. Now, from this point to our destination, and then back to the next fast charger, is 86 miles. I currently have 90 miles to 0 on the dashboard. Now, I could play with fire and take that risk, but we're not going to. We're going to top it up a little bit, because I think ideally you don't really want to get below 10-20 miles left, just in case something like what's about to happen happens, because in front of us at the moment they're fully taken. In fact, there's only one that's working and it's fully taken, and this is a big part of the problem. What do we now do? Do we continue? Do we find the next one? I'm not entirely sure. For the minute, we will just park up and then set a plan. Fortunately for me, I have not had to wait long to be able to pull forward towards the machine. Of course, that one completely out of service, the screen is totally off, and this is the only machine here for the entirety of the service station car park. So if somebody is charging ahead of you for a maximum of 45 minutes, let's say, you basically have to wait. Obviously, with only 45% and 89 miles of range, that would have been a bit brave to get all of the way. I might be able to find another charger, but let me come and show you a little bit then of this process, which in general, I have not found too complicated. Having to make a lot of different accounts and download various apps is about as complicated as it gets for all of the different companies that obviously operate the charging points, but it's quite a simple process. You come up to the car, you open up the flap with a little swipe, that opens up, then you've got the socket. You have a socket on each side of the Taycan, which does mean, considering the location not being right at the front, that you have to use the front camera to get it as far forwards as possible. Then you take the cable, come round with it, and literally plug that in nice and easily, he says, just like that. I guess it locks into place. You can see it's illuminated, and then you come to the machine, which tells us the previous person's charge cycle and doesn't currently do anything, which is not ideal at all. I need to work out what's happened here. It says put it properly back on its holder. Okay, I think you're discovering live part of the problem with this. It's just a little bit fiddly. This has to go back in there, put it back in its holder. Oh dear. The guy in front of me literally just charged with this, and now it's not working. Okay, give me a few minutes, see if I can work out what's going on here. The lucky relief is that a few minutes later, it has managed to reset itself. So we're now plugged back in. You then go to the app, and like I said, there are lots and lots of different apps that you do need to register for, but this is quite easy. You scan the pump's QR code, do that. Hopefully it will recognize it, hopefully. I think. Are we working? Yes, there we go. That's exactly where I am. We are using the AC rapid charger. That's correct. Continue. Payment details are confirmed. You can hear it making some noises. Please wait while your vehicle connects to the charge point. This just takes a moment setting up the charge, and that's it. They often make some really strange noises. I've had some very high-pitched sounds coming out of these. 0.0 kilowatt hours of charge so far, roughly 45 minutes remaining. That's the maximum you can have at this stop. And if we come into the car, you will see on the central screen, which has now gone down to 44% because of the time I've been sat here trying to deal with all of this, it tells you up top the battery charged at time. The speed at the bottom will actually increase as time goes by. As you can see at the moment, it's only charging at 0.4 miles per minute, which would mean we're here for a very long time. But even this, I can tell you, is not a very fast charger. It's a bit of hassle, 45 minutes maximum. Let's see how much we can actually get in it. Quick update, it's not going particularly well. In fact, so far, I have been here for 35 minutes and charged 6.4 or 6.5 kilowatt hours, which is about enough to drive 15 miles. Now, I only need about 15 to 20 miles or so of extra range, so I will leave it to my maximum 45. What actual percentage do we have now inside? 51% on the screen in the middle. You can just about see that. Yeah, you see the point. To charge this up to full on a machine like this, well, that's going to take hours, what, a good half a day, that kind of thing. As you'd probably imagine, we are now running a little bit behind schedule, so just to stop the session, you go to the app, press the button, end it early, nice and simple, super easy. That will then basically, I think, disconnect. Yep, all done. And then you come back to the car, which you will see now has the white light, press the button, it releases it, then you can unplug it, go return this, and hopefully it will work now properly for the next person. Mount it in there, charging session finished. That's it, job done. That will close itself automatically, as you can see, and we can continue where I now have freezing hands because it is very, very cold. So on with the journey we go. It now tells me 105 miles of range, so 104 miles. So we've got 18 miles over what we need. I'm going to be really, really anxious as we get towards the end of that we will indeed make it to the destination. I'm sorry if this just became a little bit disjointed. I completely forgot to turn off my cameras, and obviously their batteries died while we were charging the battery of this car. It was probably about an hour in total from arrival to departure to get the charge, or a little bit of the charge done. A completely different experience, obviously, to going to a petrol pump, which would be 10 minutes, and you wouldn't talk to anybody. That's one of the things. When you're charging an electric car, you talk to just about everybody around you about your experiences, about electric cars, about the Taycan, about their car, whatever it might be, and it's almost a bit of a chit-chat while you're waiting, obviously up to an hour or maybe even more depending where you are and how much charge you're putting in. And talking about charge, this is something that was brought to my attention that I didn't really know, but the marketed battery of the car for this is 93.4 kilowatts, but that's not actually the usable battery. The usable battery is 83.7. The rest, just shy of 10 kilowatts, is reserved basically as backup, so you can take it to effectively 100% and down to 0 because there is a buffer built in for protection, unlike say on your mobile phone where 100 is 100 and 0 is 0. So that's something I didn't know before, and I think it would probably be fairer if manufacturers published the usable battery amount as opposed to the full battery amount, which is slightly less relevant. Anyway, we did top it up. We're back down now already to about 42%, which is not going well, but I think we should have enough to get back towards the fast charger after we've dropped off the Roadster. I'm just really, really fingers crossed, hoping that this is going to work out, and taking it as a complete cruise on Porsche's InnoDrive, which is their adaptive cruise control, lane assist, everything assist, works super easily and makes for a very gentle, very quiet drive overall because we're just basically cruising along. The loudest thing that you can probably hear is indeed the road noise, the tyres on the tarmac, which you can't really do all that much about when you're here in the UK. I reckon this car across Europe on some lovely tarmac in Germany and France would be a delight if you can manage the charging using Porsche's Ionity chargers. And we'll talk about the pricing of the fast chargers later, because it's way more than you think. In fact, well, I want to tell you about that when we've got some actual numbers. We have made it to the next checkpoint then, here at Pandora Car Alarms, where my two cars are currently parked right outside the unit, alongside their R8 as well, looking very, very nice. But we are here to drop off the GT R Roadster, which is going to have one of Pandora's systems installed, the Smart Pro unit, which I will show you in more detail when we come back. But think of this as a super smart telemetry and immobilizer system, using an app as well for various control of elements on the car. You can see in here there's a lot of wiring and the brains, which is actually a tiny thing considering what it's capable of doing, which will all be installed, and I'll come back and demonstrate all of this when we do return. But it has the functionality, for example, to use the app to control various parts of the car. Of course, the immobilizer and security functionality, but also things like opening the boots or even remotely opening the roof, potentially, from an app on your phone from a distance away from the car, which would be really pretty cool. For now, just doing the triple press on the unlock button takes a matter of seconds and the roof is down. Although it is far too cold today, you can probably tell from how fast I'm talking. I think it's about 4 degrees at the moment, which they say doesn't help the battery life, but I've only driven this car in cold temperatures, so I don't know too much about that. At the moment, it is reading 54 miles to 0, and it is 37 miles from here to the charger, where we're going to have to do a super quick charge to make it to the appointment later on back towards London. These cars together though do look pretty fantastic, and like I said, I'll show you more of this when we come back up next time. For the moment though, just going to go in and chat with the team, make sure we're all set with the Roadster until we see it again very soon, and then we can get back on the road with the Taycan. A couple of minutes ago the weather was lovely. It was beautiful sunshine at Pandora, and now it is miserable and grim, although to be honest this is what was forecast for the day. So I've currently got it on maximum regeneration because obviously we want to preserve battery. 24% and 33 miles to destination, 47 miles to empty, only a 14-mile buffer. Oh, this is the range anxiety they talk about, because if this charge station doesn't work for some reason, I had to bite my tongue from saying fuel station there, it's not like the next one is right around the corner. And that's one of the biggest things about the infrastructure. If there is a problem or it's super slow, there's nothing you can really do about it other than just hope. But listen to how quiet it is in here. Smooth new tarmac, even with the raindrops and the wipers going. This is very, very, very pleasant, and this is what I enjoy about this car. As soon as you turn music on though, and I did touch on this once before, as soon as you turn music on, it doesn't really matter if you're in a petrol car, a diesel car, or an electric car, it's the same, you've got music on. And that is something that I think doesn't get considered very often, because normally, if I'm not rolling the cameras, I'm probably listening to music, whether it's Spotify or the radio or something, I probably have something on. Back onto cruise control though, chill on the motorway, half an hour, let's see what it's going to say when we get to this charging station. This is new for me. I have a sign on the dashboard saying please monitor range, because we are now down to 29 miles until 0 and we have 13 miles to where we're stopping, so 16-mile buffer still, which should be fine assuming it all works. Just a new dashboard message which you can get rid of. You still have now a yellow hazard warning and a yellow battery symbol as well saying 14%. The amusing thing about the charger that I'm arriving at right now is that this is exactly where my fellow YouTuber Harry Metcalf also very recently brought a Porsche Taycan. He was driving a Taycan 4S, also in green as it happens, in the factory Mamba green. I think he used the far end. There are a few other cars here, so I am going to tuck into this near end where the car has picked me up talking, because I said Porsche, so we'll shut that up for a second. Obviously it will bring up the cameras in a second, I hope, which make the parking a touch easier. There we go, nicely in the bay. You have to go right to the front. Oh, that's as close as we want to go. But we literally have now, stop with the parking sensors, we literally have a total of 7% and 15 miles. That's as low as I want to risk going. Now, I don't have an account with these ones yet, but tap payment card, plug in, tap payment, should be done. It looks like it. Let's go try and see if it works nice and easily. Round 2 of the day then. Let's go and give this a try. We'll come around and work out exactly which of the plugs we need. Yep, very close at the front. It's going to be this one, which is the CCS cable. So I will come round, squeeze carefully through with this. I've not made my life easy by holding a camera, but obviously give a swipe of that, which is now a touch on the dirty side. Need to open up the flap, which stays down just for a moment, and then we can plug this in. There we go. Oh, we clicked. We're in place. The thing is, though, it has to go around the car. That's not what you want. I mean, if you have PPF or you have a car that's wrapped, I guess it's not the worst thing. And then I'm going to do a little bit of a maneuver to come through. We've got a 125 kilowatt charger here. I guess if we click price, it's 35 pence per kilowatt hour. We need to tap, I think, on here to start it. Just grab my card out of my pocket somewhere. He says I can't figure what I've done with it. Okay, do this off camera. A nice beep authorizing. That's not my card number, fortunately. Waiting for EV. Is it that easy? No, it can't be that easy. Is this all you have to do to start it? That's genuinely all you have to do. And it reads that it's on 7%. Okay, that was really, really simple. Let's see how quick it starts to go. Right, we'll see in a moment. Remarkably, we are very quickly now to 68%. I am actually going to stop it charging. Give a press of this, press yes. Is that all we need to do? Yes, charging complete. Super simple. And then I'm going to come around, actually go around the back this time, just to come and unplug it, which you do. Now we don't have the green light flashing. Press here, wait for it to release. There we go, unplug. This is super simple, apart from this bit, having to now carefully maneuver. There's a lot more maneuvering around with big heavy cables than I previously expected, but that is all done. Nice and simple, ready for us to drive away again, just for amusement's value. I'm going to take a photo just to keep the records, because that was surprisingly quick. 33 minutes to charge 54 kilowatts for £19. So less expensive than fuel, but not as cheap as you might think. We've got, what, about 120 or so miles for our £19, which, considering we've been driving very, very gently, even in the Lusso, for example, wouldn't have been far off that. Anyway, let's get belted in and head on to the next stop. Almost as soon as I'm back in the car, it's now started raining again. I seem to have good luck today with only driving when it's bad weather, being out of the car when it's fairly decent. Anyway, an hour and 20 from here, 81 miles. We have over 130 to go. All is well with the world. Managing, just taking a little bit longer than it would, of course, if we were using a petrol car, because we would have had one single 5-minute stop, and that would have only been half a tank of fuel. We wouldn't have a third stop that we probably need to do after the next visit to actually end up getting home, and getting home with some charge to get somewhere the next time, because of course, exactly the same situation, I don't want to be setting off with a tiny amount of battery. This is a busy road, quite difficult to turn out of, so you have to think about all this stuff, just make sure it works out. And obviously the noisiest thing is in here now is the wipers, which are still not that noisy. On we go. We've made it back down the M40 to go around the M25 now, very much an eco drive, because of course conscious of having to charge the car up again a little bit later on. But I've been thinking a bit more about the price of the recharge, how much money it cost, and how that compares to, say, the GTC 4, so the Schmee-mobile that departed the garage before this arrived. And I did say I'd bring you guys along for the learning experience of an EV, this being my first. So I've been thinking about the specific numbers. The Ferrari, if you did a full tank of fuel, of premium fuel, you would top up about 85 litres, which would cost you at the moment about £110, that kind of money, and that would take you a little bit over 400 miles driving like this on cruise control on the motorway, just taking it easy, about 420 miles. So literally 3.5 times what we just did as a recharge, which cost £20, £19. So 3.5 times that would take us up towards about 70, yeah, about £70, just under. Of course, it would be about 67, 66 pounds 50 or thereabouts. Now that difference is perhaps not as dramatic as you might think, considering that charger was actually cheaper than the one I've been using in London, which is 40 pence per kilowatt and has a starting fee as well. So it averages probably at 40, I guess probably towards 43, 44 pence per kilowatt. And then if you use the Ionity chargers, the system that's being set up at the motorway service stations by Porsche, Ford and some other manufacturers, that's going to be more like 69 pence per kilowatt and have an annual subscription of a couple of £100, which you get included with the car when it's brand new. But that starts to be, if you take the price we just paid, 35 pence, and you get to a £70 charge equivalent to 110 in the Lusso, that would have been £140 to go the same mileage as a Ferrari with a 6.3 litre naturally aspirated V12. And this is one of the things that's easy to forget. If you can't charge at home, making use of cheap overnight electricity, it's actually not very cheap to run. It's basically the same as petrol in an equivalently powerful supercar. And I hadn't really considered that before, so I don't know if many of you would have done as well. Obviously it's a touch cheaper using some of the slightly cheaper charging stations, but it's not huge. And this is a Porsche. I'm comparing to a Ferrari. If maybe you drove a Panamera, it's probably a little bit more economical as well. You can kind of balance this out, especially if it was a Panamera Turbo S hybrid, for example. So that's one thing. The other thing is a journey like this. We're going to get home and it's basically going to be empty if we don't fill up again, charge up again. And that doesn't really work, because to use the car again, I need to go and spend an hour sitting at a charging station. Even just take it out, charge it, and go back home, an hour and a half probably. It doesn't work. EV, and this is really today the first long drive, what I'm learning about it, is that if you charge at home and use your car for a 10-20 mile commute, short journey, going away from home, coming back home, plug it in with the timing profile set up on the system so that it charges overnight using cheap electricity, perfect. Really, really good solution. Very gentle drive, very pleasant experience. If you don't have that possibility, which to be honest is most of the world at the moment, it doesn't work. There aren't enough chargers, some of them don't work, they're too far apart, they take far too long, and they cost a lot of money. And from an infrastructure perspective, it's decades away from being ready for everyone to be buying EVs. And here in the UK, you might have heard, from the year 2030 onwards, in 10 years' time, there's a proposal to ban the sales of new purely combustion engine vehicles. So obviously hybrids will have an extension beyond that, believed to be another 5 years, but cars that are purely combustion engine, petrol or diesel, banned in 10 years' time. Well, actually banned in 9 and a bit years' time. We're not ready. we're just not ready. And I said I would share this experience, my experience of it, of driving an EV. And while I'm at the more technologically advanced, happy to prepare in advance, look at a map, make sure I'm using the right charging stations, have all of the apps on my phone, have an account with every provider that I need to, so I don't really mind, I know what's coming. I don't think the general public can handle this yet. I just don't, honestly. And I will give a much bigger update when I've had more driving, but at this stage, I find it hard to see where we're going to be going with this, where you get where I'm coming from. Anyway, it is a gentle cruise. All is going completely well from this point of view. We're at 37% now, 74 miles to empty with 16 miles to the stop. So that means, what do we have, 58? Yeah, that's about what it said when we left. So regardless of how you drive, you seem to consume charge at about the same, unless obviously you're thumping out the launch controls on a drag strip, then it's slightly different. But around town and out on the motorway doesn't make as much difference as I've noticed in combustion engine cars. Obviously because it's idling, if you call it that, when you're stopped at every point. And I guess maybe being in an electric car encourages you to drive more gently. That could be another side impact or effect of the silence, I suppose. But yeah, I'll give a better update, I guess, when we get home. We can see what this charge remains at when we make it there. It's probably not all that surprising that we have stopped now for the third recharge of the day. It was down to 24%, and while we're not going to get it back to 79% like it had earlier, it would be good to not be completely empty when I next need to take it out. And this one, which is back on the CCS plug down here, the faster cable, although only at 50, not 100 as we had earlier, is going decently quickly. In fact, we have here 27 minutes, 22.7 kilowatt hours, back up to 50% of battery, which is overall fairly decent. The thing though that you have to consider on a drive like this, when you can't charge it up to 100%, because if we had a plug at home, of course we'd get home, leave it plugged in, and then it would be good to go tomorrow or the next day in full. But we spent a bit over an hour at the first stop, a bit over half an hour at the second stop, and probably, I guess we'll let it go for about 45 minutes here, which is over 2 hours on one day, just sitting and waiting. And obviously in normal circumstances, you could go and sit, go have lunch somewhere, instead of having to, obviously, basically eat a snack in the car. And it's not the best car to eat a snack in, because there aren't really any cubby holes or places to put things, which is a little bit awkward considering quite how large the car actually is. But yeah, a little bit over 2 hours in one day sitting at charging points. It would get quite grinding quite quickly. So I think this just emphasizes my point that you need a charger at home, and then you don't mind the one quick fire top up when you're on the road. But what is it going to be like on a massive road trip? That's what we're going to find out in the future, and maybe even a lap of the Nürburgring when things are slightly warmer, and obviously it is not winter time. For now though, given it is slightly drizzling and freezing, I'm going to get back in the car. Back where we began, 249 miles later, now with 58% of charge, having started earlier with 79. What an interesting experience for me. My first long journey in an electric car, going from central London up to Pandora near Birmingham and back to London, all in one day, yes, via 3 charging stops along the way. Now the Taycan is a wonderful car. It is fast, it's luxurious, it's comfortable, it eats up the miles. You could cruise so much further in a day, subject of course to finding the charging points. And that's what I find the most interesting about all of this, because you might have a range of 200 or so miles if you're taking a cruise and don't fully deplete it down towards 0, but that's then relying upon finding charging points that are on your route, them all working, not being too many cars there, because of course you can run into a situation where there's a queue, and having something to do to keep yourself busy while you're waiting for the car to charge before you can get back on the roads, as opposed to just pulling into a petrol station and leaving 5 or 10 minutes later. Now it's the infrastructure that really stands out to me, because the target here in the UK is that in under 15 years from now, you will only be able to purchase a new EV, a new electric car. Combustion engines and even hybrids by that point will be gone. And how can it all cope? Now I'm lucky here to be able to park my car in an underground garage, and I'm sure the building management will in the not too distant future be able to install charging points to every parking space, and it will be super easy. It will work just fine for me. But of course I'm lucky to be able to park my car in a private underground. Most of the cars around here and throughout central London are all parked on the streets, and could you imagine if every car needed to charge just about every night, being plugged into home chargers, which are much slower than the fast ones we use on the road? You'll have cables coming out of every door towards the street, and that clearly doesn't work. That is not a reality. So I don't know how all of this is going to go. I think it's very much a target that only new car sales can't be purely combustion engine from 2030 and then have to be full EV from 2035. Whether that will be achieved, I'm not sure, but seeing the development of electric charging in the infrastructure from a decade ago to now, I can't see in a decade's time that it's currently possible to actually get there. Of course, I think there are massive benefits to electric. Like I said earlier, if you're able to charge it overnight, do a short commute and back home, this is brilliant. There will be major advantages as well to autonomous subscription service vehicles where the car turns up at your front door and doesn't spend all of its time parked in a garage, or 98 or 99% of its time being parked up, as most cars do, and that's going to be a very big part of the future. But I do think there is still a space for the combustion engine, for hybrid cars particularly, especially for people, I guess, in circumstances much like my own and much like those parked on the streets in London. If you can find a charger, use it. If you can't, don't. And I think maybe we're being distracted from the actual root of all of this in the first place, and perhaps if more budgets from manufacturers were also being spent towards further developing combustion engines, they could even become more efficient, and the need to go full EV isn't quite such a massive step. Perhaps even we should be looking at going halfway and concentrating on hybrid first, and when we're there with hybrids, going to full EV. Anyway, these are just some of my musings. There's so much more to talk about and think about when I've done more miles. At the moment we're up to about 659 miles on the clock of the car in total. So when I've done a couple of thousand and I've got a better idea, I'd like to give more of an update on that. Today we've basically seen a small sample of it, charging up where they haven't worked, charging up where it's been very, very slow, but equally having the great experience of a super quick charge with a tap of the card, done, bish bash bosh, back on the roads, nothing to worry about at all. And I think that does work quite well, so long as you're on it with using the phone to find the apps, to get set up, to have the right accounts. And it's a bit of hassle, but when it's done, it's done. And it's about having that open mindset to give it a go. Anyway, I have waffled on plenty long enough. I very much enjoyed driving the Taycan today, and I hope you've enjoyed coming along as well for my first real experience of this as a petrol head, as somebody who's known for loving V8s, V10s, V12s, the noisy, loud, fun, emotional stuff. What's it actually been like to try and manage and try and learn a little bit more about it? Of course, there is plenty more to come though, so please do be subscribed to see all of that as it happens. For now though, thank you very much for watching. As always guys, I appreciate your support an awful lot, and I'll see you again very soon. Cheers!